Everything begins with an idea generated from my diverse perspectives.
Diversity is what makes Canada one of the most entrepreneurial countries in the world.
We are a team of 103 active members,
all coming from diverse cultures,
practicing different religions,
y hablando idiomas diferentes.
This year, we dedicated over 46,000 hours to our 11 sustainable projects.
We've taken action and impacted over 6,000 people, locally, nationally, and globally.
We've raised over $320,000 to enable progress in the diverse communities that we work in.
Like building water filters in rural India,
Creating organic gardens in the hills of Peru,
or introducing beekeeping in Western Kenya.
But we haven't done this alone. We've partnered with the United Nations in adopting the Sustainable Development Goals, two of which are at the forefront of our presentation today: ending hunger and achieving food security.
Today, we will share how we are addressing northern food insecurity through our most ambitious project to date. The results shown here were all audited and achieved this year.
Northern Canada is facing a food crisis. Food insecurity, the state of being without reliable access to a sufficient quantity of affordable and nutritious food.
if Canada were 100 people, only 8 of them would be food insecure.
But if none of it were 100 people, 68 of them would be food insecure.
Everyone thinks of our country as a place with an abundance of resources and opportunity. But Canadians, just like me and you, are subject to inequality and poverty.
Now yet Nunavut, an isolated community of 1,200 Inuit Canadians located on the Arctic Circle. Temperatures average below minus 30 degrees Celsius, making food nearly impossible to grow.
The first time I traveled to Nauyat Nunavut, I forgot that I was in Canada. I remember getting off the plane and having children ask me for food and for snacks. Katonka, they said. I am hungry. Food is 4 to 5 times more expensive in the north compared to the rest of Canada.
Here, a single head of lettuce costs an average of $2. In Nauyat, it costs $10. Due to inefficient importation systems, food arrives rotten and prices soar. Imagine living with an income of only $16,000 and not having the option but to feed your children this rotten and overpriced produce. This is the harsh reality for Nauyat.
I've been living here all my life. We run out of groceries sometimes because of the weather during the winter. Fruits and vegetables get rotten by the time they get here. They cost too much. I try and provide kids with fruits and vegetables once in a long while when I can. It's hard living up here.
To better understand these issues, we conducted our needs assessment. Through focus groups, in-depth interviews, and questionnaires, we discovered 3 primary concerns. Number 1, high food insecurity. 4 in 5 households in Nauyat do not have access to affordable food. Number 2, low high school graduation rates. Only 1 student in a class of 40 graduate from high school each year. And number 3, a lack of economic opportunity. 77% of the community is unemployed. So we asked ourselves, how could we solve all 3 of these issues through one bold project?
And the answer was Project Growing North, a journey that has taken us 2 years to complete. In the middle of the Arctic tundra, we built a greenhouse that not only addressed food security, but brought together an entire community.
This is no ordinary greenhouse. We combined 3 different technologies into one working unit that operates all year round, withstanding wind speeds of up to 180 kilometers per hour and 7 feet of direct snow.
During the summer, the greenhouse can heat itself 30 degrees warmer than external conditions. The north-facing wall is outfitted with a reflected barrier, directing sunlight into a pool of water below, all while radiating heat throughout the greenhouse.
During the winter, there's only 1 hour of sunlight per day. We knew we needed to extend our growing season, so we ran a research project with our university's engineering program, developing a dual-purpose unit that generates both electricity and heat.
This was the breakthrough solution for greenhouse adoption in the Canadian North.
Let's take a look on the inside. We are using a state-of-the-art vertical hydroponic tower system. Each tower, standing 5 feet tall, is able to produce 3 times more than traditional growing methods by growing vertically. So now not only are we increasing our production and reducing the time it takes to grow a full harvest, our system uses 20 times less water. Here's how it works.
Imagine a football field full of crops. That field would require an average of 11,000 liters of water each day for the plants to grow. Water that isn't absorbed then runs off and erodes the topsoil. But the geodesic greenhouse dome uses a closed-loop system that reuses the water, meaning it can grow the same amount of produce that the field could, while saving 95% of the water. In just 1 year, the greenhouse saves 4 million liters of water.
As for the people of Nauyat, they've embraced this technology. To them, it's their green igloo.
Building a greenhouse this innovative was not easy, and neither was funding it. We are so proud to say that through our efforts of fundraising, crowdsourcing, corporate grants, and investor funding, we exceeded our funding goal and raised over $267,000. With the endorsement and the blessing of the Nauyat Elder Council, we secured the land and built the greenhouse this past October.
This turned our attention to concern number 2, low graduation rates. During our needs assessment, we found that only 1 student graduates in a class of 40. And with 63% of the community being under the age of 18, we knew it was imperative to get the youth involved.
Working with the teachers and local health center, we created a customized curriculum focused on business practices, horticulture, healthy eating, and greenhouse operations. The school adopted this program as a co-op opportunity for grades 10 to 12, where students received credits for building and operating the greenhouse.
This also enables students to gain legitimate work experience, something that previously didn't exist. While the teachers happily watched their class attendance double, the Green Igloo has served as a tremendous incentive for students to remain in school.
Meet Edmund, the first graduate from our co-op program. He receives 6 credits by participating in the construction of the greenhouse, enabling him to graduate high school and secure his first job.
I enjoyed that I could help out my community and also work with my hands on this project. Students get bored and quit, and sometimes their parents don't always encourage them to finish high school. I want to provide for my baby and girlfriend to my fullest.
Because of Edmund's success, this year, our program is accepting 20 new students to increase the local graduation rate by over 300%.
Now, we've talked about the tech, we've talked about the education. Let's get back to business.
To meet the sales demands of the community's local grocer, our Arctic team, Edmund and Bonnie, manage our production process, using the skills and knowledge learned from our co-op program. They use conveyor belt harvesting to help us minimize spoilage by staggering the fruits and vegetables row by row, so that week after week, different crops become ready to harvest.
At the core of our distribution strategy is the local grocer, who has agreed to purchase 80% of our produce. For every pound sold, we earn a profit margin of 40%.
They have also agreed to provide the community with a 50% price reduction on all produce supplied from the greenhouse.
Saving money will be especially important to Edmund, who as of this morning is the father to a beautiful baby girl. Saving money for him will be especially important, and with his new job at the greenhouse, Edmund told us, "I will now be able to provide for my daughter."
This turned our focus to concern number 3, a lack of economic opportunities. So, we identified 2 additional revenue streams.
Number 1, the profit from the greenhouse will be reinvested back into the community through a microloan program for aspiring Inuit entrepreneurs, allowing residents of Nauyat to start and expand their own businesses using locally generated seed capital, literally.
Number 2, with 20% of the produce, we have launched the Nauyat's Women's Cooking Collective, where 9 local women combine their talents to create cultural dishes such as stews and soups. All revenues returned to the collective, where expenses are paid and profits are shared.
It all starts with one seed, and today, we've brought 100. With the greenhouse built, operational strategy secure, and distribution channels ready, our team will be traveling back to Nauyat, but this time to do a little gardening and plant these exact seedlings into our vertical hydroponic towers. This month, we will be harvesting our first crop: kale, potatoes, tomatoes, and strawberries.
By the end of the summer, we will produce nearly 5,000 pounds of local and affordable fruits and vegetables, empowering an entire community to minimize their supply chain and dependence on food importation.
The reality is, we chose one of the most challenging places on Earth to prove the sustainability of our triple bottom line model and technology. And what resulted was a self-sufficient, cash flow positive, food producing business, scalable by design. Based on our learning curve in Nauyat, expansion to additional communities will cost less than $80,000.
And this hasn't gone unnoticed. We have received overwhelming support from across the country. Project Growing North has been featured in 86 Canadian news outlets from coast to coast to coast, raising awareness for millions of Canadians of the inequities faced in Nunavut.
With this exposure, the Elder Council of Arviat, another Inuit community, invited us to help them solve food insecurity. We'll be replicating our model in Nauyat this summer, conducting our needs assessment to ensure economic and operational sustainability.
By 2017, we are set to expand to Kugaruk and Kikitarguak, 2 additional communities, to scale our impact and build more green igloos to address northern food insecurity.
Given the success and sustainable nature of Growing North, we address 13 of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. For this reason, out of over 2,000 initiatives, the United Nations recognized and hand-selected Growing North as the benchmark project for goal number 2. End hunger, achieve food security, and promote sustainable agriculture.
We are working side by side with the United Nations and leaders from across the globe to eradicate poverty in all of its forms and dimensions, as this is the greatest global challenge and an indispensable requirement for sustainable development.
I guarantee that kids will gobble it up. They love healthy food.
I look back and see what we have achieved. The greenhouse is going to be a tremendous bonus to this town with the herbs and the vegetables and the vitamins. It'll encourage people to eat healthy. They'll live healthier lives.
Ever since I heard about the greenhouse, I was glad that somebody thought about Nauyat.
It gives us a chance to have real, fresh, ripe vegetables and fruit. It actually be an increase to people actually having the vegetables.
This year, through Growing North, we worked with 271 Inuit Canadians.
We ran 22 seminars on business, horticulture, and financial literacy.
Raised over $267,000 to build our fully recyclable green igloo.
And worked with 3 additional Inuit communities for expansion.
But the people of Nauyat take center stage. Through Growing North, an entire community has been transformed.
Edmund has graduated and secured his first job.
Charlene, a mother of 4, started her very own business through our education.
Curtis, a 5th grader, will now spend many of his future classes in the Green Igloo.
Bonnie, Nauyat's first high school graduate, is now the greenhouse manager.
But the story shared here today is only one sample of what we have accomplished this year. As much as we have changed the lives of people up north, they've changed ours, as do all the people we work with across the globe.
Project SAF, our newest initiative, focuses on providing clean drinking water to rural villages across India through a locally made water filter that can be manufactured for just $1.
Project Doggo, located in Western Kenya, runs 7 different initiatives. This year, we empowered an entire community to launch their own businesses, raising average household income by 200%.
Sacred Valley, a horticultural project our team runs in Peru, worked with 60 individuals, creating a sustainable organic garden as a new revenue stream for the local school. In just 3 days, we're going back to Peru and building our second organic garden.
But the majority of our work takes place in our own backyard.
Project Pathway, an initiative focused on helping disadvantaged Aboriginal Canadians become confident, contributing members of society, was successfully adopted by the Native Women's Resource Center that works with over 2,000 women annually.
Start Smart, our award-winning financial literacy program, helps aspiring entrepreneurs start and expand their own businesses. This year, our program empowered over 1,000 aspiring entrepreneurs.
And finally, Project Welcome. This year, we welcomed over 70 Syrian refugees integrated into Canada through financial literacy lessons and daycare for children.
In true Canadian spirit, this is how we're representing the leadership taken in tackling real-world issues.
We can be.
We must be.
The first generation to end extreme poverty.
The generation most determined to fight injustice and inequality.
And be the generation that ends hunger.
This is how we're doing it.
With a team of 103 active members,
dedicating over 46,000 hours to our project.
We generated over $320,000 in revenues for our participants.
Working in 5 countries through our 11 innovative projects.
This year, Enactus Ryerson has directly impacted over 1,900 individuals, improving nearly 7,000 lives around the world.
It's up to all of us, partnerships of all kinds, to turn these goals into reality.
Everyone,
everywhere,
we are
Enactus Ryerson.
We will now begin the question and answer period.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that award that you received from the United Nations, how that was selected?
Absolutely. So with the United Nations, the Sustainable Development Goals came around September of 2015, and attending the World Cup in South Africa, we realized that the next generation of Enactus is working with the United Nations and working with massive organizations to solve and end poverty everywhere. So in terms of how Enactus Ryerson is involved specifically with the United Nations, we have a project liaison. Her name is Olga. She's fantastic. We filled out a project application form, submitted it in October, and she got back to us and said, we want to represent Growing North as the project under goal number 2. So I invite you all, please go to the Sustainable Development Goals website, click on goal number 2, and you can learn all about our project up north. Thank you for your question.
First off, congratulations, awesome job. I had the privilege of judging in the entrepreneurship competition yesterday, and there seems to be a little overlap with what was presented as an individual business yesterday and a project that you ran in Nunavut today. Can you help me understand where the overlap is and what was done by your team versus an individual business?
Just to clarify, is this for the student entrepreneur competition?
Correct.
Okay, so for the student entrepreneurship competition, myself personally, I was born and raised in the country on a small farm. And the sustainability that we had living on that farm, we always had fresh food. We always had the availability of food, no matter what. I mean, even though we lived in the middle of nowhere, we always had this fresh food. And the idea to do both Farmium, as you saw yesterday, and Growing North today stems from a passion for sustainability and the idea that food should be in the hand of every single Canadian, regardless of where you live in Canada. It should be a national right to be food secure, and that every Canadian should have these equal opportunities.
So just quickly, is there overlap between that business and the project that was presented?
Not necessarily, no. We operate with similar technology, but different business models.
With the high capital cost of the igloo, sorry, over here.
There you are. Okay.
There you go.
With the high capital cost of the igloo itself, can you talk about how sustainable this business model is and how it will ultimately empower people over the longer term?
Absolutely. So to talk a little bit about the capital required for these greenhouses and the overall expansion of Growing North, currently we have one greenhouse operating in Nauyat, and we're working with Arviat, Kikitarguaq, and Kugaruk, their local governments and hamlets, to secure the funding required for the next 3 domes through a grant known as Growing Forward. It's a $2 million economic grant from the government of Nunavut. Once we have built our first 4 greenhouses, we're actually able to fund our own expansion across the north. From our learning curve in Nauyat, we've reduced total implementation cost from $130,000 now down to $80,000, meaning in the first year of operating 4 domes, we'll have enough money to expand across the north. And that truly is the definition of empowerment. It's no longer a handout, it's in fact a hand up for these communities to start solving food security where they live. And this is exactly why the United Nations was so thrilled to come on board with our project and feature us on the Sustainable Development Goals website, because it truly is empowerment. Sorry, Stephanie will come in right now.
As for the sustainability of our overall business model, we created a co-op program to provide maintenance as well as operations on the dome. In addition to that, we actually created a partnership with the locally owned grocery store, which will be distributing our produce. So the big thing about growing north is that, our job is done. We have provided the tools and resources for the community as a whole to take leadership in this project. And as we take a step back and expand to Arviat, Kugaruk, and Kikitarguak, the community will be taking a step forward and because of the fact that we made it completely and utterly sustainable.
So a question over here. Hi. Just on sustainability as well, curious in terms of if you know how much of the percentage of consumption for the community this dome would produce.
Absolutely. So our consumption right now, we're currently able to do 51% of their yearly supplies. In the next 3 years, we'd like to expand to capture more than 80% of that. Thank you for your question.
Hi, back here. Sort of related to these are highly technical domes that are going to require replacement of parts, et cetera. So curious about whether the maintenance contracts are going to be able to cover that sort of thing, and who's going to actually keep them going and without you guys flying up to Nunavut. The other thing was just about the investment. I think there was over $200,000 in investment. How is that going to be repaid, and how would that affect cash flow going forward?
Your time has expired.